Your Majesties, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for always returning. Trust you and yours are well, and you're loving yourself and others like always. Many thanks to all of you for the support you give to the channel. Thank you so much to our channel members, to our anonymous supporters, to all of you, my esteemed subscribers. You're loved, celebrated, and appreciated. So today we will look into the conquest of Northern Africa and how the power of Ghana saved West Africa from Arabization of West Africa, just like what happened to North Africa. Now, when you look into history and read some books, you discover that the plan of the Arab world initially was to take the whole of Africa, like making the whole of Africa what they've made the North Africa to be like, wiping out the originals and have domination or dominance over the whole of the continent. This was the plan of the Arab civilization. They felt like the whole world should be under their feet, especially Africa. And they did everything, okay? But the power of Ghana, as at that time, was what saved some part of West Africa from the Ottoman capturing. When you look at Egypt, you look at Morocco, you look at Sudan, you see the handwork of the Arab civilization, okay, or the Arab colonization, all right, whichever word you want to use for it. Because if you want to do some going back to these countries that I have mentioned, all the countries in the northern part of the continent of Africa, you discover that there was a time that gradually those who were melanated became Arab. And what they do is, when they come in, they unalive the men, they castrate the men and turn the men into eunuchs that serves in their palaces. And their wives, they marry their wives and make these women have children, multiple children. Now, at the process, clearing the lineage, wiping out the race. This is exactly what Arab did to Africa. You know, when we talk about the European colonization, slavery, and everything, it is because it is more recent. That is why it's like the pain is more in the minds of people than what the Arab did. What the Arab did was going to the core and wiping out every soul. Like they want to wipe out the lineage, clear it out. And how do they wipe out these lineages? They castrate the men or unalive the men that are stubborn. And they marry their women, and their women begin to give birth to children for them. This is how they wipe out the melanated race in the northern part of Africa. And today you hear these people saying that they are not Africans. You hear Egyptians saying they are not Africans. Okay? Those in Sudan, those in Morocco, and you can name them, they tell you they are not Africans. It is not the African blood in them that is talking. It is the Arab blood in them, the rebellious blood that is talking. Because it is a sign of rebellion. You leave your own cave, your own your corner of the earth. You come into another person's corner. You wipe out the person, castrate them, the men, marry their women, and have multiple children. And they deliberately have multiple children so that they'll keep wiping out the race. This is exactly what Arab did to the northern part of Africa. Let's have some discussion from Professor, and then we take it up from there.
The Arabs conquered North Africa in a jihad between 639 and 708 AD. And this is why North Africa today is Arab. Because if we go back in the day, North Africans used to be black, just like the rest of Africa. But let's read what happened. A scholar called Ibn Khaldun explained what happened. At the time of the conquest of northern Africa, and I've put in brackets by the Arabs, some merchants penetrated into the western part of the land of the blacks and found no king more powerful than the king of Ghana. His states extended westwards to the shores of the Atlantic Ocean. Kumbisale, the capital of this strong, populous nation, was made up of two towns and formed one of the greatest and best populated cities in the world. The author of the Book of Roger makes special mention of it, as does the author of Roads and Kingdoms. So, what have we just been told? When the Arabs conquered North Africa, they tried something in West Africa. But whatever they tried, they were stopped by this most powerful West African king, who presumably handed out a smackdown. That king was the ruler of Ghana, and his territories were all the way from the Atlantic Ocean inland. And his capital city was one of the greatest and best populated cities in the world. And if we want to know more about ancient Ghana, we should read this book, the Book of Roger, and we should read another book, The Roads and Kingdoms. We're going to follow up on both of those books. Now, the Arabs in Africa brought in Islam, and Islam became a rival for traditional African religions. And it divided Africans then, and it divides Africans today. Should we stick with tradition, or should we jump on Islam? You also had Africa's first major refugee problems, because the early North Africans that used to live in Egypt don't. The ones that used to live in Libya don't. The ones that used to live in what is today Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, they don't. They moved south. And this is why black people in Africa live south of the Sahara. An African queen from Mauritania called Dahia El Kahina tried to stop the Arab invasions, and she was brave and she fought back, but ultimately she was killed in battle, and the Arabs conquered North Africa.
You know, when sometimes I read historic books, I just discover that Kwame Nkrumah leading the liberation of African countries from the hold of European colonization as the first country to have independence in the whole of Africa is not a coincidence. I think this is what his ancestors did, okay, protecting or preserving the heritage of the African people. It's in the blood. And that's why I keep saying that our ancestors live in us. Because before we came, it's like a tree, okay? It's like a tree. We don't just came out from nowhere or jump out from the sky. We came from a line. And so the traits of our ancestors are always embedded in us because our ancestors live in us. Okay? So Kwame Nkrumah heading this whole thing, in short, he took money from Ghana. Kwame took money from Ghana to help other African countries liberate themselves from the hold of colonization, to the point that his own people, Ghanaians, were not happy with him. But they forgot that their own ancestors also worked tirelessly to prevent the Ottomans from capturing the whole of West Africa and turning the whole of West Africa into what North Africa is today. If not because of the help of the King of Ghana, all of us today, we might all be what do you call them? We might all be Muslims, hitting our heads and praying. You know, when we talk about religion, especially those of you who are so religious and feel like it's a taboo to talk about religion, just imagine if the president, if the Ghanaian king did not do anything, if he wasn't as powerful, and if he didn't do anything to stop the Ottomans, all of us would have been Muslims. So what will you say? Wouldn't have even known anything about Christianity. Your Majesties. So the parts that the Arab got hold on are the parts that are predominantly Muslims. They are into Islam. The path that the Ottomans could not capture, and then the Europeans came and captured, are the parts that are predominantly Christians. So if the Ottomans didn't have access, if the Europeans never had access, Parts like that wouldn't have had any of this religion. They would still be practicing their normal traditional life that their ancestors practiced. Your Majesties, our ancestors were not demons. Our ancestors were not satanic people. There were people who were spiritual people. They were even more spiritual than us today because they never had fake people in them that smile at you and behind you they stab you. Now, when you listen keenly and you discover quietly, you'd realize that the Ottomans took North Africa through jihad. Now, what is jihad? Jihad is translated as holy war. Okay? The holy war that the Muslims partake in. And they believe that when you partake in that kind of war, you will have a direct helicopter that will take you to heaven. And you have how many virgins? Is it 7 virgins? You have it in heaven. That is their own crusade. Jihad is like crusade. Okay, that is not even like, it is crusade. In Islam, it's called jihad. In Christianity, it's called crusade. Where they capture you, you don't have an option. It's either you convert and partake in their own belief, or they unalive you. This was how the Ottomans took over North Africa. They didn't give opportunity for anybody to have free will. They come to you. Do you accept Muhammad? If you do not, they kill you. If you say you accept, they take you, but they'll castrate you and turn your wife into their own wives and start birthing their children. And they wipe out your lineage. This is exactly how North Africa was captured by the Ottomans, and they successfully wiped out the melanated race from North Africa. And that's why you look at them today, they are all mixed. And then they'll come out telling you with their full chest that they are not Africans. Your Majesties. And they want to gradually cut out North Africa from Africa today. What are we saying? If you do not know your history, something is wrong. Because if we keep shying away from rediscovering, if we keep shying away from going back to our history and knowing what happened, what really transpired, if we keep shying away from it, we'll keep making the same mistakes that we made in the past. I don't want to say our ancestors made in the past, because our ancestors are us. Whether you like it or not, you are that tree coming down. If you like, reject your ancestors, you are rejecting yourself. If we don't want to go back to the past, revisit the past, we'll make the same mistake that we made before. And how do we unite where we don't visit the past and know how Islam came to Africa? How Christianity came to Africa? Before Islam and Christianity, what was happening in Africa? Have you found time to go back and have that research? No, because they have told you Jesus have saved everything. Oh, Jesus is the answer. Jesus, so you forget about yourself. You forget about yourself. You don't want to do any research. No, they told you Muhammad is the final. That's the only thing you have to think of now, Muhammad. You don't think of anything. You don't want to go back. Before Muhammad, what were you? Or who were you? Before Christianity, who were you? How were we living? We need to revisit our past so that we'll correct that mistake we have made and not make the same mistake again. Your Majesties, I felt like showing this to you today. What do you think? Leave your thoughts and opinion there at the section, and I'll see you in my next one. Until then, love yourself, love others, stay safe, stay positive, always, Majesties. Bye for now.